This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everyone. We may not have spots for you already, but we do have stripes. Black and white animals known as zebras who do not see in colour and also see their world in black and white. Welcome, everyone. Jump on board. It's time for your live safari. Good afternoon. Welcome to Djuma Game Reserve. The winds are still absolutely howling here. You may notice when you see my hair flying everywhere. My name is Lauren. I do have Davi on camera. In front of us we have zebra, impala, and the Waterbuck has just arrived to join the party. Everyone is staying huddled together. And why are they staying huddled together? Well, they're also not a big fan of the wind. Predators can utilize the wind to sneak up on prey and they will never hear them. And that's exactly why our little party here is gathered on quarantine, the favourite of all places. Now this is your live safari, so you must talk to us. Send in your comments and questions. Hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, at FC on the YouTube chat stream, or kids, we also want to hear from you too. So email us your questions to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. Now it's actually a really toasty 30 degrees Celsius and 86 degrees Fahrenheit. It just happens to be very windy. If the wind wasn't here, I think it would be a really, really sticky hot afternoon. I love it when all the animals are congregated on quarantine. And it does mean that there could be predators nearby. Okay, so I'm going to leave quarantine behind, head to the hyena den, but you guys are going to pop to Tswalu Kalahari to say good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It is another, as always, stunning day out at Tswalu Kalahari from Jandre on camera and Dylan. It is great having you with us. It's always such a pleasure. I know I can't see you, you can see me. That's how these things work. But it is always great. I'm just tongue-in-cheek, always winding you up. But yeah, it's a beautiful afternoon. It's a little bit cooler than it's been the past couple of days, but certainly it's a lot warmer now than it was this morning. The clouds have kind of broken up a little bit. And we were just like ambling around and we happened to bump into these two male lions, which is really, really exciting. And I'm a big believer in the harder you practice and the more effort you put in, the luckier you're going to get. But I always appreciate these moments where things are just like put in your lap. You're like, oh, here's two lions. So we were actually on the way to the waterhole over here for Jandre to do a little bit of bird watching. And this is about 150 yards from the water. Here's these two cats. But there is, what I find interesting, and we'll look around for a little bit, is there's a lot of blood on their muzzles. And you can see that, you can actually see that one's been drinking water. You can see his mouth is nice and wet. But there's actually blood around the nose, on the whiskers still. So they've obviously, and just judging by the size of that belly, I mean, look at that thing. That thing is rolling like a barrel. So I'm pretty sure they schniffled someone close by to you. I mean, look at that. Wowzers. So I reckon there's a kill close by. It'll just be really interesting if we can actually find it and see what it is. And look at the size. If we can maybe go to this one here on the right, Jandre, if possible. Can you see the size of this one's paws? It's actually really nice because he's lying with his paws where you can actually see them very, very well. Look at that. And then on the
Welcome here to Pride Lands Conservancy. We are just using the wind to see if we can find some tracks. I'm Mike Anderson, and behind the camera as always is Gert. And as I said, it's a very, very windy day, as you can see from all the grass rippling behind me. And what we're doing is we're looking for tracks right now. Any tracks that we find must be very, very fresh, because they won't last long in this kind of wind. So we're looking for any signs of anything walking across these roads. It's especially a good time for predators. In this kind of wind, prey animals like impalas, which there are a lot of here at Pride Lands, will not be able to hear or smell predators coming until they're right on top. And so we're hoping that if we find some tracks and we follow those tracks, we might be able to find something interesting. But it's a tough one today. With all this wind, you find a lot of the animals are very, very nervous. They're being extra vigilant. As you can see, as I look at you, the sun is very, very bright. So with the bright sun in their eyes and this wind that's howling behind me, it's very, very tough for them to spot danger. So they are really huddled up right now and being very, very vigilant, not doing much feeding, not doing too much moving around. And even animals like elephants, which don't have to be too afraid of predators necessarily, don't like all this howling wind through their big ears, and so they'll also be taking shelter in the thickets. Could be quite an interesting afternoon though. I know some of my very favorite sightings that I've had of predators especially have been during these kind of windy days. So as we drive around, we'll definitely keep our eyes out for anything hiding in this golden grass that we have around us. So what we're going to do, we're going to keep moving along these roads nice and slowly, looking for tracks. We're going to send you over to James in a very, very windy Juma.
Let us indeed hope for such luck. Good afternoon. Welcome to this end of the Sunset Safari. I am heading down the riverbed here for reasons other than just wanting to compact my spine and that of BK, the cameraman. Hello, BK. There we are. I'm heading down here because it's hot and it's windy, as everyone has now no doubt already mentioned. And if I was an elephant, I would want to get out of the wind and be in the coolth. And so this riverbed, with its thick vegetation and relatively sheltered sides, I reckon would be the best place to be. So that's why we're heading down this way. You can ask us any questions you'd like to using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter. Ooh, I just missed a woodland kingfisher. There we are. Beautiful. Alternatively, if you're a youngster, you can send us your questions to the email address kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. Very nice sighting of a brown hooded kingfisher, which of course, as all of you will know, does not eat fish, but rather insects. And for those insect eaters that remain here during the winter, this is a lean time. Not a lot of insects around, although I will say, with the increasing heat, the mosquitoes are already back. Taken up residence in my bathroom. I wish this kingfisher would come and live in there. He'd mainly be looking for things like grasshoppers. Mosquitoes probably not really his fare. All around I can hear the wind whistling through the tops of the trees. For sure, Pangolin Pop, it's more exhausting for birds to fly when it's windy. It's a huge effort to stay balanced, A, and B, if they want to actually get somewhere against the wind, then yes, it's a massive effort to try and fly against the wind. The only birds, or the birds that seem to do it best, are pelagic or seabirds, which have very thin wings and very streamlined bodies. And they have developed various techniques for flying into the wind in a pretty efficient manner. A bird like this is not designed like that. It's designed to hunt from a perch like this and move in various directions with flapping flight as opposed to gliding flight. And so If this bird decides to fly in a northwesterly direction, i.e. straight into the wind, it's going to struggle. And in fact, it's very interesting to watch birds do it. I was watching a batelier just before we went live, really struggling to stay kind of upright. You can see them balancing, and then every time it turns into the wind, it kind of half flips over before it rights itself and carries on going. It's just like us, you know. I went for a run today, Lauren went for a run, and we both agreed that it was a lot more effort than it is when there was no wind. Linda, this is a beautiful bird, yes, and it's one of the more colourful ones we get during the winter. Not the most colourful, but it is pretty colourful. This is a howling gale for this part of the world, and normally, as I said this morning, we'd expect this kind of wind in August. Not so much now. Last year we hardly had a winter in this part of the world, and we haven't we've had a short winter this year. I think it'll probably get cold again. I hope it will. This kingfisher will be quite pleased with the heat, actually, because it means that some of the insects will come out. Right, I think I'll just continue down this riverbed and see what I can find.
This is fantastic to see, because this is now the third male in this. We're probably sitting 200 meters away, or 180 yards away from where the other two males are lying. And remember I said we're going to come, there must be a kill close by here somewhere, so we came down to the waterhole, and I actually said, oh look, there's a dead kudu. Wait, no it's not, it's a lion's rump. So I'm very, very pleased that we got this. There was a jackal lurking around somewhere in the background over here, and of course he's going to be keeping his distance while that male's on there. And it does seem to be a kudu. You can actually see the horns sticking out just to the right of the lion's rump. There you go. So that's definitely a kudu that they caught. But they've certainly made short thrift of this, and there's barely anything left on it. From what we can see from this angle, of course. I mean, it's... But he'll probably feed on it for another couple of minutes, and then I would guess would either go lie down or he'd come down to the water. Haley, who is 14, has asked how many kilograms of meat can this lion eat. So there's a difference between at a sitting he can go through 10 kilograms easily, but if you look at it roughly, you 5 to 6% of their body weight, and we spoke about this a little while back on the meerkats, and that's kind of like a maintenance diet, give or take, and you can work that backwards pretty easily. So if he's 200 kilograms, it'll be 10 kilograms, of his body weight would be 5%. And I really hope I'm getting my maths right there, because if I'm not, you're welcome to correct me. But that wouldn't be necessarily at a sitting. That would be over a couple of days, that he could feed on successively, today, tomorrow, the following day. But if he was only eating once every 3 or 4 days, for instance, then you'd be eating a big quantity of meat. But we know they don't do that. We know their normal prey size is kind of like these kind of kudu. I mean, this kudu bull is 220, 230, 240 kilograms. So, if he was only catching one small prey item, let's say a springbuck, every 4 days, he would gobble that entire thing up, and he'd have to eat every 4 days. But if he's catching, or him and his his cohorts, if they're catching a kudu bull at a time, then they wouldn't have to catch anything for, another couple of days. But this is so exciting. This is the last thing that I was expecting this afternoon. Come out and actually bump 3 adult male lions in succession. But again, look at that stomach. He is full. Full. Look at that. He's licking a lot. Those of you who've got house cats, or have ever felt a cat's tongue, you'll know just how rough they are. A lion's tongue is absolutely no different, just on a bigger scale. Oh, look at that, giving it a pull there. Chandra and I, we're going to just sit with this lion. I just want to see if those other males come back. But in the meantime, head over to James and see what he's got that side.
Sorry everyone, I'm not James, sadly. I'm a female version. Not even close. But I do apologize about the wind. My hat has flown off 3 times now and counting. And we have a very nervous, large warthog. Very large warthog who's nervous. Wants to drink, but extremely wary. Knows that as soon as they bend over to drink, they're putting themselves in a very vulnerable position. Not only are they not looking what's coming up behind them, it will take them a few seconds to jump up and begin their escape from predators. So this male here is really, really avoiding coming down to drink, but I think he's thirsty. It's incredible how animals behave differently depending on, the weather, and how they can utilize different elements for their benefits. Oh, I think we're brave enough now. We're going to go for it. Finally. Gremlin's general, yes, he knows something's fishy. I love that. He does though. He knows at any point. He's chosen to position himself in the very exposed area, which is very smart, so that at least he has that advantage. Whereas if he sort of went to the shoreline where there's lots of vegetation, then anything can sneak up behind him on a day like today. The wind makes most prey species very nervous. It disorientates them. They can't smell properly, can't determine where the smell is coming from, they can't determine where sound is coming from. And just a quick update, we did visit the hyena den and no one is home. This is my 4th visit today. I think I went 3 times this morning. Once this afternoon and not a single sign of anybody. Okay, so I think we're going to move away from this extremely windy spot and see what else we can find.
A warm welcome from andBeyond in Ngala, and even though it's a warm welcome, it's a very windy afternoon, and I'm sure like everyone would have seen, there's quite a bit of dust at the moment as well, so very hazy today, and we are currently looking at a giraffe chewing a bone. So I'm Nikki here at andBeyond in Ngala, and with me on the camera is Owen. So I think let's head back to that giraffe. So earlier on we drove past and we just saw there was something very unique that this giraffe was doing, and it was chewing, but it wasn't really swallowing anything. And if you look at the way the lips are moving as well as the jaw, it's definitely chewing something hard. And so often in the wintertime, giraffes have a calcium and phosphorus deficiency, and so they'll pick up any bones from an old carcass and then chew that. and then by chewing it, like breaks little bits of the bone off, and they'll be able to swallow it, and helps to replenish some of those phosphorus and calcium, sorry. And I wonder, like, if we give it some time, we might just see as it's maneuvering that bone, like probably towards the front of the mouth. So I do remember, like, the very first set of guests I've ever driven, and while we were out on game drive, they asked me about giraffes, and they said, like, what are some of the things that giraffe eat? And I said to them, I guarantee you the giraffes only eat, they're herbivores, so they only eat plants. And they said, but are you sure? I'm like, yeah, so only plants, and that's the only thing that they eat. And as we came around the corner, there was a giraffe with this massive bone in its mouth, and they looked at me, and I said, no, I need to explain. This is not, they're still herbivores, but they do have that deficiency. But very interesting to watch, though. There's actually 2 giraffes, and it looks like that one is also young male. Do you notice the little bit of bald patches on top of the head? Maybe with the giraffe's tongue, it could be, there's a set, so I mean the average is they estimated to be around about 45 centimeters. But I mean, if we look at a youngest giraffe, it could be anywhere from 30 all the way up to 45 centimeters. Just depending on, of course, on the size, but like normally a big average adult will be around that length. And it's crazy to think, I mean, look at the size of this giraffe's neck, I mean, the length of it, and to still think that it has the same amount of neck vertebrae that we do, 7, but of course they're a lot longer than ours. I think with, if I'm not mistaken, I think with all mammals they only have 7 neck vertebrae. But it's pretty amazing to know that a giraffe will have 7, and just look at the size of the neck. We'll even notice, like, I mean, even though it's such a windy day, most of the birds are actually, most of the birds will actually struggle to cling on and, like, just been blown off by the wind off the branches. But you can see these oxpeckers are just clinging on to that giraffe as they look for the ticks. But I think while we are going to enjoy this, I'm going to slowly carry on, see if there's any other signs this afternoon of some other animals we could possibly see. But while we do that, let's send you across to Mike, who's apparently tracking.
So not yet. We're still looking for some fresh tracks of any animals, but we've come to areas where the sand is softer and finer, so the tracks are easy to identify, because in this wind they'll get degraded very quickly. So what we've done is come to these sandy areas. As you can see, there's dung all over here, but none of it is very fresh that we've seen. Seen a few buffalo tracks around, and we've had some reports of potentially tracks of African wild dogs in the area. I know that there were some here a few days ago, but they headed north away from this area. So we're just trying to ascertain if they came in all the way south here to where we are now. So these sandy roads will offer us the best opportunities to find out if they've come here. And of course, around these sandy, open, grassy areas, we often have herds of impala hiding amongst all the sickle bush that you see around here. So we're hoping that we might just get lucky and find a herd of impala that might be being hunted or stalked by a predator of some sort. Shenzi, you asking what advantages would wind give to a predator like a wild dog's? Well, all the advantages actually, because remember, wild dogs are hunting sometimes with their sense of smell, well, not really with their sense of smell, sometimes with their hearing, listening for animals in the distance, but mostly they're using their phenomenal eyesight to run, as they run and course through the bush. It's what's called coursing. As they run through the bush, they disturb animals or they see animals and they just start chasing. Now, normally, from a distance, the impala could smell, I'm using impala as an example, they could smell or see the wild dogs coming. But with this kind of wind, they won't know the wild dogs are there until they're right on top. Remember, animals' eyesight is very well adapted to movement. So if there are animals, if there are trees and grasses and everything moving around, it's difficult for an impala to spot a wild dog or a leopard slowly stalking towards it. Of course, once a wild dog gets its eye on an animal, it will start running at full pace to chase that animal. So the advantages are that the impala won't smell, won't hear definitely, and probably won't even see the predator until it's very, very close. So it offers a lot of advantages, and that's why I've said some of my best ever predator sightings have been in these kind of windy conditions, where they, even in the middle of the day, when they would normally be resting, they find that they can actually hunt quite successfully. So that's what we're hoping for. That's as we drive around, we're just looking for tracks and signs, and every now and again we stop like we have now and just listen, because it won't stop an animal for alarm calling if they do see a predator. So we might just catch something on the wind, but it's very, very windy now. We can't really hear much at all. But as we drive, we're going to keep looking, and I'm just hoping that we find some tracks, you know. That's always one of my favorite parts of finding an animal, is when you use all those sounds and sights and you build an idea of where an animal might be, and then eventually you find it. And that's the most rewarding experience, once you do actually find the animal. It's better than just bumping into it, you know, by luck. If you actually use some sort of prior knowledge and skills, you know, it always makes you realize that, hey, actually I know what I'm doing. I can find an animal, even though I didn't know there was one there. I mean, definitely when we have our senses tuned in, we're also quite perceptive. But when we have all this kind of wind around us, I mean, almost impossible for us to hear anything. And we're, you know, imagine an impala who relies completely on its hearing. You know, when it's busy feeding, it's got its head down, it's not looking, it's listening. So on a day like today, the impalas are literally not feeding at all. They are huddling together in the hopes that they can just survive. And this area is quite thick, so I'm hoping that the shelter of the wind here has got some animal hiding. Even an impala or a leopard would maybe have hunted through this area and stashed something on one of the taller trees around here, or even under a thicket. Alright, so whilst we drive around here looking for any signs of any predators or any animals at all, we'll send you over to Juma and see what they're up to.
We've got a Birchel's Kukul here, and we've come to huddle below the dam wall here at Twin Dams. I wasn't so much looking for the Birchel's Kukul as I was for the black crake that BK and I saw here yesterday. But he seems to have absconded into the reeds. I suppose I could go splashing around there and try and flush him, but, well, that wouldn't be very nice for me or for him. And so the Kukul it is. Well, the vicious bird. Well, like all meat-eating birds, will basically eat anything it can overpower. And given that it's about 1.5 feet long, that's quite a few things. Now, the water for a bird like this is a good place to be, because things like reptiles will come down and have to drink, and they'll hang around the water. And so, you know, chances are he'll be able to find some insects and lizards and that sort of stuff around the water. Jacqueline, the difference between a bill and a beak? Nothing. As far as I'm aware, they're entirely the same thing. Just synonyms for one another. There might be some obscure difference, but as far as I'm aware, you can use either word, bill or beak, for the same thing. Right. Seeing things. Yes, I am. The moving leaves are playing tricks with my eyes. By moving, I mean swaying viciously. And then the other thing we can have a look at here quickly, BK, is the beautiful lilies, the water lilies. There they are. I love a water lily. Very pleasant. Are they called Nephilia species? Wait 1 second, I shall find out for you. Hey have my little book with me. Nymphia, sorry. Nymphia. Nephilia, I think, is the golden orb-web spider. Nymphia. Supposed to only flower in summer. But this one is flowering in the winter. So thank you to the water lily. Which apparently smells delicious, but I'm not going to go and smell it. Let's go back to the Kalahari, where I don't think it's snowing anymore, but they've certainly got some action going on.
So this big guy was trying to pull that critter further into that bush. I have no idea why he would want to do that, because there's next to nothing left on it. But he really put a big effort into trying to do it. He didn't get very far, just because I think the thing is so entangled in the branches of that shepherd's tree that are lying down over there. And just going on the size of the other two males, the size of their stomachs and how full they are, I think this male actually probably got slightly less to eat than they did. So perhaps he arrived at the party, the dinner party, a little bit after the others did, or who knows. He's having a good munch on that. Make no bones about it. No, I'm just ribbing him. James, that's a really, really good question. James has just asked, do the lions of the Kalahari show any behavioral differences to the lions of the Lowveld? Not per se. Where the marked differences come in are in terms of range use, in other words, habitat use. Kalahari lions can cover massive, massive, massive areas. And in some areas like central Kalahari and Botswana, there can be a lot of lion movement, following game, herds of game. I guess in some ways similar to Serengeti scenario. So the habitat use is markedly different, whereas those prides in the Lowveld can actually tend to be larger, just because they've got an abundance of prey. Whereas out here, prey can be abundant, but often smaller kinds of prey. I mean, up in the Kalahari Transfrontier Park, you'll get them catching springbuck, as an example. That's a small meal. We have it here occasionally as well, but not as frequently. So things like on Tswalu, certainly, eland, gemsbuck are probably the two staple foods for lions. And that's you're not going to find down in the Lowveld either. To put it in perspective, I'd have to check up exactly on the central Kalahari lion, the size of the things that they use there. But I'm just going to turn now. I am watching the lion. Don't worry, I've got it on our screen over here, just in case you're worried about it. It's just so he doesn't sneak up on us. But in terms of the central Kalahari, I'd have to check exactly what those territory sizes are for the lions. But as an example, if you compare it to leopards, you get leopard territory sizes in the Lowveld that are really, really, really small. You can get 700 hectares for some females along the Sand River and that. Your males, bigger, certainly, but leopards in the central Kalahari can cover areas of up to 2,000 square kilometers for a single male. Vastly different habitat quality that you're dealing with there. One's a high game density area, others are extremely low game density area, no permanent water points. And as a consequence, they need to cover bigger areas in order to survive. And the female territories are also much larger. And lions would be much the same if you had to do a comparison between that Lowveld area where our colleagues are working, Tswalu and central Kalahari as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Juma from andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. As you can see here, we've been Marcel is right behind the camera. We were trying to find a cheetah. Finally, we come across mother with two cubs. As you can see, guys, the cubs right behind me actually start playing, which is amazing to see that what they do now. The mom, she's trying to lead them away. Anytime soon, they must start following the mom. As you can see, they're more fluffy, mane on the back, and the way they're playing is just the way they are learning how to chase the prey. As you can see, at the back and in the front claw, they use the dew claw actually to trip down the prey, whatever. Could be something small like an impala or Ngala. That's what they used to do, like a duiker as well. They just use the dew claw and then fell over, and then it goes straight into the throat, because that's what they needed to do. Because if they let the prey make a lot of noise, this is a very big risk for them, because other predators, if they pick up the sound, they can all start making their way to check what's happening around. If they find a cheetah there, they definitely are trying to kill them, take whatever they got, and then that's what the cubs trying to do, to learn all those kind of techniques. Otherwise, if they never practice, they find very difficult, because also they use a full speed running to chase each other. Wow, look at that one, it's climbing up on a tree. Crafty, they get to use the vehicle a lot. Yeah, that's lovely, Crafty. Wow, it's quite a windy, guys. I will try to stick with these animals and see how they go, because the mom, she looks like she's just start hunting now, as you can see. But okay, so we'll stay with these guys and see what they do.
We have a gallon of Waterbuck. I don't actually think that's the correct collective noun. We have discussed this before. I can never find... Oh, this male's chasing after ladies. I can never find the correct collective noun for Waterbuck. We've had some great suggestions in the past, but I don't actually know the official collective noun. Goodness. But if you know, please share, or you can share some of your ideas. I've heard some fantastic ones. I'd love to hear some more. But we see 2 males and lots of females and youngsters. Everybody's out in the open at Cheetah Dam. It's very exposed. It's windy here, but at least you can see if anything's coming. That's why everyone's huddled together, I think. Now, waterbucks are said to be able to swim, but they really can't. They simply don't swim. You will see them around water. Water is very important to their lifestyle, especially the males. You'll see them drinking water, of course, but you'll never see... What is this male up to? He keeps chasing all the females. I don't think the ladies like that, sir. But yes, they simply don't swim. Dizzy, I love it. A bucket. I think a bucket's probably better than a gallon, actually. A bucket of Waterbuck. So over here, we have a bucket. Yes, I like it. Dizzy? They're nervous. That's why they're staying so huddled together. I wonder if this is 2 herds, because there's 2 dominant males here. And I wonder if all the females have just huddled together for safety. The males always set up territories around water, and the females come. They're heavily depending on water. And the males will tolerate young males in the herd, so there may actually be some youngsters that are boys that the males will tolerate. But once they get older, that's when things change. Ah, Tavi, well spotted. Look at those tiny horns. It's a very young male. And although waterbuck are found around water bodies, they're often found feeding on the upward side of the seepline. And this is an ecotone. There's different sort of bands of vegetation here, and the seepline's a really, really important one. And due to the nature of the soil, a lot of combretums grow in the seepline, and waterbuck are often said to be found there feeding. But today's a day to be out in the open. I think I can see the saddle-bill storks over there as well, Davy. Do you see them? 12 o'clock. Yes. Also, don't look like they're loving the wind. I don't think anybody's enjoying this wind. Male and female. They disappeared for quite some time, and they seem to just have arrived back to Cheetah. This male waterbuck is causing havoc. Okay, while I try to, well, shelter from the wind and bumble around Cheetah, we're going to send you guys back across to Dylan.
We just repositioned ourselves fractionally just to get one of the bushes out the way over there. But he's really tucked himself nicely inside there. Some of our colleagues were chatting about territories, and we were talking about lion territories and that as well. Generally, encounters between different prides are aggressive but not fatal, but occasionally they can be. And we've actually seen it twice in the past couple of years with different lion prides encountering each other on one of their key spots, and it's like those boundary overlaps at a waterhole. We've had that on 2 occasions when they've actually killed lionesses from opposing prides. So pride defense, territory defense can be incredibly aggressive sometimes. And they'll chase intruding males, and even intruding females sometimes, chase them for kilometers and kilometers to get them out of their area. But I'm always amazed at that camouflage. There's a 200 kilogram plus adult male lion. Okay, we obviously, but if you out like that, if you were walking over here, you came strolling along doing some bird watching, like Jean-Andre was going to get out here just now and look at some birds, and you wouldn't see that lion for love or money. Maybe you hear the odd bone crunching, but that's it. If your hearing's as good as mine, you wouldn't even hear that. But lo and behold, if you went down to the woods today, you're in for a big surprise, and there it is. So yes, I'd love to have seen which of these lions actually caught that kudu. Dizzy says something about that lion's face full of blood is very menacing. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because so often we see these cats as, they're just relaxed, they're lying there, they're docile, they're sleeping the day away. And yet, they've got that hardcore side to them. But that's a predator. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a mongoose, it could be a meerkat catching a scorpion. They need to be focused, they need to be able to take down dangerous prey, and you don't get that by having soft edges. Some of the larger kills, like big eland and down in the Lowveld, they're taking things like buffalo or even young elephants, giraffe, stuff like that. Sometimes these lions actually crawl right inside carcasses, and then they really come out covered in gore, and it can take them days to clean themselves afterwards. And that's often with this allo grooming, with the others actually licking their fur as well. And that tongue, that rasp-like tongue, actually really helps with that grooming, keeping themselves clean. He's trying to extricate himself from the bush. Oh yeah. What's your plan? He's really going for the scraps here. Let's just see. He might lose interest. So graceful.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we're still with the cheetah, but the mom, she's just disappearing here. I think she's just for hunting somewhere around this thicket. We're just sitting waiting with the cubs for the mom's signal. If she calls them, or if she calls something, she'll make sure she's calling them. As you can see, they all look a little bit confused. Where the mom? But she will be somewhere around in the bush in the thicket where we were trying to drive through, but we couldn't. But as you can see, it's amazing to see our cheetah here at Phinda, and the way they're hunting in a thicket place like this, it's unbelievable. If you look at it, if you're thinking of cheetah, you're only thinking that they might be hunting in an open area, and it's amazing to see. When we started with the cheetah here at Phinda, everyone thought the cheetah are not going to make it here because it's quite dense and it's quite rocky mountains as well. So we'll be surprised to see the cheetah is the best place to be viewing here in Phinda because they are adapted to land, to hunt into this kind of environment. So, oh, the mom has just come back now. Wow, looks like she didn't catch anything. Scott, this is a good question. Cheetah can make it easy up to 110, 120. That's what they've been researching. So cheetah is a fast mammal in land, if you know, Scott. So this is as you can see, they're both like kind of greyhound. Beautiful animals. Well, the mom just come back. Looks like she didn't catch anything. As you can see, yeah, she tried to do the thicket, but not lucky. She'll keep on trying until she gets something. She's a very good mother. As you can see, the cubs are a little bit, they're not very thin. As you know, yesterday the female cheetah, she had impala. It was just very young impala. And then they fed a little bit of that, and then they left. Looks like she's quite keen again. If you look at her, comparing to the two cubs, she's very skinny comparing to them. She let them eat more than her, so she can be able to continue hunting. This is what the mom does. She's still looking into this bush. It's quite a lot of windy today, but we hope she would do it well. She might let them have some dinner tonight. But even if she didn't catch anything, the cubs are not bad hungry. Well, look, she's just walking around. We'll just hang around with her.
So he just moved off, relieved himself in a big way, and then just went and flopped down close to this killer goat. And Jandra, I think you can actually get a nice view of where. There we go. Look at that nice, warm, steaming. Something will enjoy eating that. I have no idea what, but I'm sure there'll be some organism that'll love that. And actually, jokes aside, something is going to eat that, like whether it's bacteria or, in fact, you even get jackals occasionally that'll go into lion dung and ferret around in it. Just that's pure protein. Ugh, that gives me the heebie-jeebies, just thinking of it. But he's having a good snooze now. Belly's full, water's right here, media has asked, how long will it take for lions to finish their food? It really depends on the size of the carcass. You know, if you've got a big carcass, they will finish it. That could take days. I mean, if let's say these 3 males, let's say they caught an eland bull, that's 700 plus kilograms. That is 3 times the weight of this kudu bull. Judging on how the state of this kudu, they probably caught this not last night, probably the night before, yesterday morning. And so 2 days later, they're still here. It's pretty much finished. But an eland would last them five days, easily 4 or 5 days. But it really depends on the amount of lions. It depends on the size of prey that they're actually catching. I've watched these lions catching steenbok. It's tiny. It's our smallest antelope. We get you a couple of kilograms. And I mean, they literally demolish that in minutes. You know, they'll gobble that thing up and then they'll carry on going. So, you know, it really has got a lot to depend on the size of the prey that they're actually catching. But a carcass like this, these kudu bulls, this is probably 2 days, 3 days tops, and then they'll be done with it. But cats do look peaceful when they sleep, and those of you who have cats at home, you'll just know a cat can make itself comfortable anywhere, and lions are no exception. Leopards, African wildcats, caracal, they all have this ability to make themselves comfortable regardless of the terrain. I'm curious as to see where this pride is. We're actually right in the territory of what we call the Southern Pride. And yeah, so I haven't seen
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we're still around here with the mother with 2 cubs, which is still moving around. She looks like she's still hunting. As you can see, she's more successful at where she does. Looks like she's heading in a very good direction, because that area was impala behind this bush. If she keep on moving that direction, she might come across to them. So we'll just hang around here. As you can see, she's just like there, sitting down and just waiting and scanning around, making sure, because the most important for her is a safety. As you can see, it's very windy here today. She needs to make sure wherever she's hunting, there's no other predators. She will check, and also using a sense of smelling and hearing, and eyesight as well, very good. So that's why she's like just pausing for now, making sure she's not just moving in before checking. Look, our sky is quite dark. Looks like later on we might have some rain, but yeah, likely for now we still have a sunshine direct to the Cheetah, which is very nice to see them, like with this sun. Wow, look at this little two now. They get some little rest after chasing each other, running around. It's amazing to see how these two looks. One on the right is much likely darker comparing to the other one on the left. Yeah, look at that, sitting nice like that. Well, guys, we'll just sit here and see what this cheetah does.
We are also sitting pretty. Trying to escape the wind is actually overbearing in some parts. It's really strong. I'm sure you've heard that many times today, but we thought we would just stop on Chitwa Driveway to have a listen, but also to admire these spectacular views that Davy is giving you. I was actually hiding down here. This was my original position just there so that you don't get the wind. It's probably not the best.
Yeah. Yeah, this guy is still flat dog, but it's really nice to see the color of that mane. It's that dark charcoal grey, almost black, and that's one of the features that Kalahari lions, the males, are renowned for, is that those dark, very, very dark manes. And impeccably well camouflaged. In scrub terrain like this, where you've got a lot of these low-level bushes and things, and you know, low-angled light creates these really penetrating patches of sunlight into deep shade, and these manes actually, apart from serving as a advertisement of the power of the animal and the strength and the status of the animal, you know, it also really actually serves a good purpose in terms of camouflage. There's some work that's been done in East Africa also looking at the potential heat gain or loss benefits of different color manes, you know, light color manes as opposed to dark colored manes. But what has been shown is females do select males with darker manes. If you've got a male with a lighter mane, male with a darker mane, the females will almost always go for that male with a darker mane. So all you guys out there who are running out now to buy hair dye, it's not the same thing. Sure, he's got a lot of nicks and dings and scratches on him. I mean, even on his flank there. Yeah, no, this is certainly a gorgeous male. I can't agree with you more. Look at the width of that muzzle. Jean, I don't know if you can actually go up close. There we go, it's beautiful. I mean, look at the width of that head. You know, and that's probably, I'm going to say, it's probably about 35, 40 centimeters, give or take, you know, that head. And that's just like power. You know, the occipital ridges, you know, it's just, you know, or the supraorbital ridge there, it's just like designed everything for muscle attachment the whole way around, over the crest. Incredibly strong bite force, and they need that. You know, if you got to tackle an animal the size of a kudu or an eland or a buffalo, things like that, you've got to pull down this incredibly powerful animal, and then you've got to suffocate it by hanging on and clamp your jaws onto that windpipe or over the muzzle. You need some proper strength in the muscles on your actual skull, as well as the neck and shoulders.
So we found some impala, and as we said, they were very, very nervous because of this wind and hiding amongst the thickets. It's actually quite an open area, but what's really interesting about this group is we found a female in this group who has horns. That is very unusual. Do you all see that one? That's not a male impala, that's a female. And she's got little horns, which is incredibly rare. This is the first impala female I've ever seen, a ewe, that I've ever seen with horns. That's crazy. I don't know if any of you have ever seen a female impala or any female antelope that's not supposed to have horns, which has horns. It's very unusual. And in this group here, you can see their ears are moving back and forth, and they're looking and listening around, not spending too much time feeding. But this is a fairly big group, so they're able to do a little bit of feeding. They're very nervous. There's a bunch of males around here as well, and they're not so comfortable with each other nonetheless. And then also with this wind, they're nervous about wild animals, wild predators, like leopards and lions coming through here on this wind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move us forward just ever so slightly to see if we can get a slightly better view of them, and then we'll just see if we can keep following this female. As I said, it's the first time I've seen a female impala with horns, and it's quite unusual. I'd love to keep following her and see what she does. We haven't seen much else this afternoon. I know there's heard some elephants in the distance around here, and I know there were buffaloes here earlier, So if we move around this area, we might be lucky enough to see more of them. See, all the animals are looking quite innocent. See, those males are very, very skittish with each other as they run around. As they move around, they surprise each other, those males. Peter has said that it's very unusual. It's so unusual. Yes, Peter, I mean, as I said, it's the very first time I've ever seen a female impala with horns. So, I mean, I'm just really enjoying. So there she is again. As you can see, that all the other impalas don't have horns, but they don't seem to worry about her. It's not like she's being ostracized or forced away in any way just because she looks different. It's quite interesting. You know, there's often stories of lionesses who have manes. I think there was a group in Botswana maybe where there was a lioness with a mane. So she was the size of a lioness, not much bigger, but because she had this big mane, she was actually able to defend the group or chase away other lions. I don't know, it was very interesting. I wonder, this is just maybe a genetic, you know, imperfection, shall we say. I wonder if it has any benefits to her in any way. I wonder if she's had anything that's been easier for her, maybe hooking branches down if she couldn't reach them. I don't know. Very interesting. And the males following behind the group there. So you see, they keep moving into these thickets. It's very difficult for us to follow them because, of course, the sound of our vehicle, because of all this wind, has got them very alert. And I'm a bit nervous about maybe disturbing them unduly. So I'm keeping my distance from them. I don't want them to run and find themselves in the jaws of another animal. Oh, so what we're going to do now is, whilst we keep an eye on these impala and see what they do and where they go, we'll send you over to Djuma, who's keeping an eye on some cheetah.
Welcome back, everyone, again. As you can see, we're still around here with our female cheetah with the 2 cubs, which is beautiful afternoon. And also we start getting some few drops of rain, which is amazing for them. So let's see what they're gonna do, because it looks like she starts getting up and scanning around. Maybe she picked up a scent of something, because there was some impala earlier on here behind these big bushes around. Let's hope she might start getting mobile towards that direction, because she's aiming very good windy direction where she is. That where she is, she might get nicely hunting into the direction. So the wind is very strong. Like I said earlier on, she needs to be very careful wherever she goes, because she always worrying about the other predators. Like this morning, there was some 2 different set of lions in this area. Needy, there's a good question. They are very good hearing of the cheetah, because they definitely need it, because they bottom from the food chain. So nearly they are very good sense of hearing. Well, off she goes. I don't know what she has. Must be a scent of something. Wow, she come back. I'm not sure if she spotted something there. Oh, now she's just sat down. Keep on listening and looking. Yeah, we can see some nice rain coming. Quite a big one, but windy also strong. Looks like she's not sure what to do now, because also that windy when it's strong like that, she's not very comfortable. So much trees moving around, and I'm sure everyone can see that windy. Yeah, look at the beautiful face looking direct to us. We'll just sit here, wait, and see what she's gonna do.
So what I think we've got over here, and it is difficult to see just because of the incredible wind that we had last night, and this is soft sand, but you get all these big scuff marks in the ground over here, and I suspect this kill took place right down over here when this could have either just finished drinking or when it was on the way in to drink. And I think those lions ambushed this kudu pretty much right where we're sitting over here. You can see there's lots of cover here for lions. If they actually came out the bush behind the kudu over here, or if they were approaching the water, which is also likely to come drink, maybe the kudu was already here. But looking at these big scuffle marks over here, I'm guessing this is probably where the kill took place over here. And it actually becomes really fun when you looking at these big marks over here, and I'm just thinking I would reckon that's probably what happened over here. I'm kind of keeping a half eye out behind us over here in case the other two males come down and drink. Didn't look like they were going anywhere in a rush though. So we just lost everyone there for a little bit, but we are back like a back-maned lion. Oh. Chandra and I were just chatting about, it's quite interesting to see. I mean, he's lying in dappled shade there, and considering the temperatures that we've had today, it's been quite cool. Spotters asked, will a lion carry the carcass away from it when it moves? It won't do that, especially not now. I mean, there's essentially nothing left that they're going to benefit from on that carcass. They've pretty much cleaned it up. So they would just be literally carrying a bag of bones around with them. So they won't do that. What I have seen, I mentioned earlier, I've actually seen them catching steenbok here, these very small antelope. And they, especially if there's pressure, in fact, in one particular case that I recall, a lioness had caught the steenbok. A male ran in, grabbed it from her, and then he actually trotted off for about 300-400 meters with these lionesses after him. Eventually they just lost interest, and he ate the entire steenbok. So there's some of the smaller kills that actually pick up and they'll carry a little distance, but it's kind of atypical of them. A species that is well known for doing that, a couple of different ones, are leopards and what do you call those other big stripy cats, like Hobbs, Kelvin and Hobbs, tigers. They actually tigers are known for taking kills over 2 kilometers distance from where they actually caught the thing. And but lions don't normally do that. They won't normally do that. And there's also these, you get these kind of stories like that Ghost in the Darkness about the Sava man-eaters, and the film really used that huge amount of poetic license there and embellishment in terms of the guys get up there and they find this lion's lair or this den like filled with human bones, and lions don't do that. They do not take their kills to one spot to devour them, whether it's a steenbok, an eland, or a person. They gobble them up pretty much close to where they ate them. There are instances of them moving them, but they won't take numerous kills back to one location. That, I guess, makes for a good story.
I haven't blown away. I promise. I'm still here. I feel like I've blown away, but I'm still here. Sorry about earlier. Where we're giving you some beautiful views of Cheetah landscape. Now I'm trying to imagine where I would be if I was a predator. So we think we might loop in central to the center of a reserve and then try the Mawati where it's nice and sheltered, because this is not so pleasant. Can you see that hoopoe, the African hoopoe there, Davi? I'm hoping it's not going to fly away. You see it? No. There you go, you got it? Zoom in right there, you got it. You see? Also clinging on. The mohawk's not even upright. It can be easy for birds in the wind. I think James was touching on that earlier. They can utilize it, but they won't be able to control their flight as much. Just like flying fish. So flying fish are fish, yes, and they live in the ocean, but they're able to propel themselves out of the water using specific fin movements and, well, ride the wind, essentially. And the more sort of powerful or strong the wind is, the further they can go. And sadly, they end up a lot on boats. You can be on boats and have a flying fish land on your head, which is really not ideal. But they can't control their flight, so it's purely wind-powered flight. They don't have wings, they can't flap, they've got fins, but they do ride the wind and hope that it's going to take them exactly where they want to go. But very often it does not, and they end up in boats, and trying to catch a slippery, wriggly fish to put it back in the ocean is not easy. So that's another species that utilizes the wind. It's gorgeous. It looks slightly different because all the feathers on the head are bunched back.
Any sightings, space for one?
Sorry about that. Okay, we're going to see what else we can find in the eastern section of the reserve. But you guys are going to cross to James with another bird.
We've got a vulture here, and it seems to be struggling to hold on to its perch. Every so often it opens its wings and looks like you and I might if we were trying to balance up there. But what's interesting if you look carefully is that its crop looks full. So it's had a meal fairly recently. What that meal was, I don't know. Where it is, I don't know. Maybe it's around here. Shame. Vulture, why don't you go and find a nice thickly leafed tree? Crawl in underneath the foliage and there you'll be sheltered. Well, Nancy, I don't think they're too bad at balancing, given the incredible enthusiasm with which the wind is blasting out of the northwest. So, yes, I mean, it always is a little surprising to see a bird trying to balance, but I don't think it's that surprising. Given how powerful the wind is. Now he could take off, of course, and just kind of wheel his way up and then hang in the air, but I suspect it would probably be energy inefficient to do so, especially as his crop is full. And so, you know, like most animals out here, I don't think that they register that things are unpleasant, if you know what I mean. I think we register things as being unpleasant much more readily because we have a way of escaping them. So on a windy, miserable day like this, we just stay inside. On a cold day, we'll just stay inside or put a jersey on. These animals have no expectation of the conditions changing, and so they just kind of deal with it, I guess. Maybe they sit there and hope for better times. But I think their tolerance of extremes of conditions is probably much higher than ours. In fact, definitely much higher than ours. Ours is pathetic. He seems to be almost thinking about flying. Logan, depends on the vulture, but most vultures eat carcasses, rotting flesh. They are scavengers, so they'll eat things that have already been killed. And so you would find this vulture lurking around something that had been killed by a lion, a leopard, a hyena, or wild dogs, or something like that, and then hoping to get some scraps. I don't think that's what it's doing here, on account of the fact that there are no other vultures. So you'd expect to find a whole herd of them, not a herd, whole flock of them around if there was an actual carcass on the ground below. So I think he's eaten something or other and then found this place to rest. Right, Mike's managed to find some buffalo. Let's go and find out what they're doing.
So we have found some buffalo, and as I suspected, they are hiding in these thickets because it's very windy. I don't know if you can see if it translates very well, but you can see all those branches moving, and every now and again gusts of dust come flying past. So they've got their heads down in this thick green vegetation. What I thought was very interesting is there's still swarms of flies around them. Buffaloes are always followed by these flies, because as you look here, these buffaloes are very old and sometimes they don't have a lot of fur. These are sometimes referred to as dugger boys, and that just means dugger is a South African colloquialism or a slang word for mud, and there on its back you can actually see that dried mud caked on there. So they try and use that mud to protect them from these swarms of flies that sometimes can give quite a nasty little bite. They are blood-sucking quite a lot of the time. You can see the muscles just twitching there, trying to get these flies from landing on them, trying to stop the flies. But just down in this nice green thick vegetation, they're somewhat sheltered from this howling gale, and they're enjoying it. You know, these old buffaloes, they don't have a lot of stamina for moving very fast and long distances to new areas, so they'd like to stay wherever they can find the best and greenest vegetation. Or you can really see that wind now. Wow, look at those branches whipping around. And we might just park ourselves here and stay here for the day, because we're a little bit protected from the wind as well. But as you can see, it's very thick in here, nice and green. Shirai, the mud is a great spa treatment. I've often gone and dipped my fingers into these mud wallows to see just how silky and smooth this clay mud is. And it's really incredible. Sometimes you just go and
Sorry about we just lost a link at one of the other guys there, but we are here back at Tswalu Kalahari. We just left that lion down at the waterhole over there. He had eaten himself into a complete torpor. So we're just ambling through these higher areas where the grassland is here, taking an absolute flying chance. Maybe we'll be able to find something like a aardvark or a pangolin. This is a good time for them now. You know, it's a bit cooler, and in these grassed areas you get a lot of termite activity. Remember, we were chatting the other day about how important the termites are for them, and so this is actually a really good area for them. And there's a dam up ahead as well that I want to make a turn at. Maybe we're lucky to find something there. Also, these higher lying areas, you get really good vantage points. Daniela has asked, how long will those lions sleep for now that they're full? So this gets punted a lot, where people say, oh, lions sleep for 18 hours a day. I've yet in 20 plus years in the outdoors, sorry, in 20 plus years working in the industry, I've still got to see a lion. I've got to watch a lion with his eyes closed solidly for 18 hours. That doesn't happen. They'll rest for 18 hours. So they'll be sleeping awake, rolling over, shifting around. But it's not fast asleep for 18 hours. But yeah, they can be recumbent like that, lying down, resting / sleeping for 18 hours at a time. So yeah, those cats aren't going anywhere in a rush, that's for sure. Oh, what a beautiful afternoon. It's just cleared up gorgeously. I think tomorrow morning may be quite cold because any heat that had been trapped in under these clouds, I can't even believe I'm saying that because there was no heat trapped under those clouds today. But what little heat there may have been, I think now that it's really opened up now, I think that heat any heat left is going to dissipate during the course of the evening. And I think tomorrow morning is going to be pretty chilly. But it's okay if there's no wind, then it's tolerable. Your ambient temperature is okay. It's just when you get that wind chill creeping in, that's when it becomes, when the temperatures really start dropping below zero. And of course, those little meerkats that we've been following so assiduously the past couple of weeks, they're not going to like this cold weather either. So, and I'm actually very worried about them in terms of having those pups. I mentioned it before, the really optimal time for them to have them is in the summer months when there's just a super abundance of food, and of course it's warm. So there's less of a challenge in terms of thermoregulation. But now, with this cold snap, less food resources, but if you look at this landscape as we're driving along here, but look at these beautiful patches of shade and light, all these different contrasty bits. And that's what makes those male lions, those manes, just so effective at camouflaging them. Those lions are brilliant hunters, brilliant hunters. And of course, yes, if the females are around, they will capitalize on kills. And some people may think, oh, the female does all the work, the male just comes in and takes it, and he does nothing. But you must remember how that benefits the females hugely to allow the males actually to come and feed on kills, or even sometimes just take it away completely. In terms of, they are the ones that are key in the pride defense. And if a new male comes in or a coalition comes in and takes over, they probably either chase the males out or kill them, but they'll definitely kill every single cub that they can find. So there's a huge benefit to the females actually letting their males, their pride males, actually feed on carcasses, so they're not wasting their time running around trying to catch their own food. They can actually stay in good condition, and they can actually do what they do best, and that's fight other males, chase them off, defending their territories. Oh, what a gorgeous afternoon, shish. There's a little porcupine burrow just up the road over here. Occasionally you can sneak up on this porcupine and you see him nicely in daylight. Unfortunately, the wind is completely not in our favor, so we are going with the wind, so we are moving in the same direction as it, and it's actually blowing in the direction of the burrow. So I think it would be a bit of a wing and a prayer were we to actually see that porcupine out now. I'm going to amble on down to the waterhole and see what awaits us on that side.
Along this extremely bumpy road, hoping for some sort of interesting biology in the next few meters. Road is on a seep line, which means that It's very bumpy. I will find some interesting biology. Just give me a second. Give me a second. What grief. If I don't die first. Come on, Henry. Come on. It's coming, I can tell. Something coming up. Ah! Look, there's a firefinch. Quickly, BK. Just keep it in there. Look in there. We definitely got some firefinches. What was Rosalind's comment there, Emma? Fascinating bit of tree there. Wonderful. Ah! Rattling testicular. Excellent. BK, that is a great spot of a rattling testicular. What a sighting, hey? There we go. Sure. I mean, I don't even know what to say. Let's see if there isn't something else in that tree. There seem to be a few birds coming down there. Rosalind, yes, we will try and... There's a fork-tailed drongo, BK, up in the same tree. We'll try and be careful of our backs, but you know, very difficult to maintain posture in these vehicles. There are also some grey-headed sparrows, top left of that branch. See them there? Right a bit. Right, zoom. Zoom, up, zoom. Zoom, you're on them. There you are. Well done, BK. Stunning birds. Amazing colours, grey and brown. Phenomenal. Oh, and a yellow-throated Petronia's just landed on top. That's the one on the far right. You won't be able to see that because it's silhouetted, but that's what it is. A yellow-throated Petronia. Could it get any more exciting? I mean, unless something like a... Oh, I don't know, something like a sabota lark was to land. It's difficult to imagine a sighting with more variations of brown and grey. So, rattling testicular, grey-headed sparrow, and yellow-throated Petronia. And let us not forget the fork-tailed drongo. Fantastic. Now, if there's anything more exciting than those 3 species of drab bird, it is an impala.
So I hope these impalas are exciting for you. They're exciting for me. These impalas are looking more relaxed than I've ever seen an impala, I think. Actually, no, not really, because every now and again they put their heads up. But the wind died down, strangely enough, for a few minutes, and they all took that moment to just quickly start feeding again. So we moved away from those buffaloes. They went into a thicket, and we're just waiting to see if they come out into a better position for us. And we thought we'd come to the water, and here we found that herd of impala with that female with the horns. She might pop into the screen soon. That's not it. That's a young male with very, very small horns. But you see how relaxed they look now. The wind really died down quite a lot, and whereas before they were on the move and they had their heads up and they weren't looking relaxed, now they're very, very relaxed. But interestingly, their tails are not moving. And because that wind is so strong, or was so strong, the insects that normally pester and plague all these antelope are not really bothering these impala at the moment. They're opting for easier animals, like those buffaloes we saw in that thicket, where the wind was maybe a little bit more sheltered. And so these impalas can enjoy keeping themselves warm rather than having to keep bugs away. Actually, it's quite interesting. There's not a lot of fur underneath where the tail is, so they're keeping the tail down, maybe even just to keep warm. Very, very important on these cold, winter, windy days. I don't know if you saw that there was a hornbill that just hopped around in the back there. There's a whole bunch of birds that are following these antelope. There's another hornbill just popping around in the back there. A lot of birds following these antelope. As they walk and feed through this grass, they disturb small insects, and the hornbills can snap them up. Or anything can snap them up, anyway. So there's obviously still something bothering them. They're still grooming there. You see that impala is just grooming itself. Very, very important. Personal hygiene doesn't stop just because it's windy. It's interesting. They actually have a special tooth in the mouth. And as far as I'm aware, I mean, I've never seen it personally, but I know that's written in the books. It's got a special tooth which is almost comb-like, and it rubs it through its fur and is able to scrape off any parasites and dead skin really, really neatly and evenly. Like anything, you've got to keep yourself in top condition if you need to avoid being eaten by something. Still, every now and again, you see popping their heads up, using those ears. See how the ear is right forward like that. The wind is at the back of these impala. And so they can smell anything maybe behind them. So they need to look forward where they couldn't smell and listen forward to try and make sure that they don't get ambushed by something coming from downwind. So, there's more exciting bird activity with James. We'll send you over there.
Absolutely astonishing sighting here of a yellow-billed hornbill. There we are. The bird is trying its best to shelter from the wind, and as you can see, it's let go of its perch and ended up most of the way to Cape Town. No, it's managed to stop itself. It's quite interesting to see how quickly it got to where it did, though. It went roughly at the speed of sound. Sure. I must say, if there's one thing you don't want to be in a wind like this, it's a bird trying to get around. It's much better to be a gerbil in this sort of situation. There you can stick in the sheltered grass, nice warm burrow. Not out in the elements. Even a mongoose. I bet you won't find a great number of dwarf mongoose out of the out of the ground. You see that, Paul? No, you won't see it now. I think it's a hoopoe trying desperately to stay in the air. That's it. Now I will tell you, as we're about to move on, have you got him? No, he's gone. Yeah, I'm not surprised, BK. The wind is starting to change in so much as it's getting cold. So that front that slammed into the Kalahari today, I think is about to hit us. Though you normally come from that part of the country. So I'm not sure what's going on. Anyway, there it is. Great excitement with our yellow-billed hornbill. See what else we can find you along here. There's a relatively interesting tree, and I mean, I do use the term relative. Emma, if you need to crash cut away from me because something more exciting than this tree occurs, just tell BK. I obviously don't have any comms right now. I haven't noticed this tree before. And what it is a center thorn, or Vulture nilotica. And they are not common here. There are one or two on quarantine clearings, and there's a dead one on Twin Dams Road. Quarantine clearings are the clearings just outside our camp, whose name I try to avoid at all costs because, well, just not very romantic. And I shall bring you a sample, as long as the wind doesn't impale me on it, which is quite imminent. No, I don't seem to be able to break a sample. I'm too weak and feeble. This is astounding. Oh! I'll be back shortly. sorely tempted to put my teeth to it, but I think that would be a mistake. Good grief. This is the most difficult piece of tree I've ever come across. There we are. Sure. Tony says I must use my tusks. Tony, I think that would be a mistake on account of the fact that my eye may have been impaled on one of these very fine thorns. So this is the scented thorn, so named because the pods, when you break them open, taste like, no, they don't taste, they smell like apples, like very fragrant apples. And they're much favoured by elephants, and that's why we don't find a lot of them here. Very stringy bark, as you saw when I was trying to break it. Sans my tusks, and the bark also used for tanning leather. Not so much these days, I don't think. I think you'll probably find that tanning leather is done in a synthetic way rather than by hacking away at Vulture nilotica, the scented thorn. I'm going to throw it away now, BK. Right, we are now going to go over there.
My favorite animals, zebra, and then of course there's some wildebeest next to him. But have a look at this little baby zebra that's right next to the mum at the moment. And if we give it some time, so he's got, oh, there he goes, he's just decided to go for a lie down. Now, because of the strong wind at the moment, most of the animals are trying to move into a little bit of cover. And with these zebra and wildebeest, they have moved into a bit of shelter, but of course, they still need to be in a nice open area where the mum can make sure that that little one is safe. But just have a look, probably been standing for quite a while. Now the legs are getting a bit tired and now decided to go and lie down. Oh, look at that. You can even see the birds as soon as it started lying down, how the birds just went and like popped onto that little zebra. But look at how well it blends in, like especially with it lying down like that. You can barely see the zebra, of course, other than the ears moving and that little bit of tuft as it's trying to get rid of those birds. If you just look towards the back and the tail end, it's very well hidden. I think those birds are bothering him way too much. See how close he sticks to mum. How adorable. I know some of the viewers are commenting on how cute this little zebra is, and I can't agree with you more. As I said, it is my absolute favorite animal, and having a little zebra like that, even more special. Look at how close. He's like almost wedged up against mom. And so sometimes, especially when they're this young, as soon as the mom starts moving, this youngster won't leave her side. He'll try and move up against the back of her legs, maybe even try and move towards the front. Rub his neck, his body against the mom, and of course later on he might even go for a drink. Now he is at the age where you can see he is wandering off, like now and again he'll feed off a bit of grass, but he's still dependent on mom's milk. But if you compare him against the zebras in the back, you'll notice how much more fluffy he is in comparison to the others. And normally as they start getting older, they start losing that fluff. Now, I don't know if everyone noticed, and you'll see it, especially like it in some documentaries that you always, or most of the time, find zebra and wildebeest together. And then often you ask the question, but why would you really find them together like that? And it's quite amazing to know that with zebras, so they are not ruminants like the wildebeest. So the wildebeest will need more of a nutritious grass in order to keep going. So it won't eat as much as a zebra, but everything it eats, it needs to eat something that's a bit higher nutritional value. So the zebra tend to eat the top layer of the grass, opening up that shorter, more delicious grass for the wildebeest. It's often seen together. Now these zebra are feeding quite close, and I wonder maybe because this whole area, there's not a lot of tall grass at the moment, And so most of the nutritious parts quite close to the ground, and that's why all of them have their heads down. But you'll normally see if the grass is quite tall that the zebras would eat the tallest strands and the opening it up for the wildebeest. Look at how it's using those lips, almost like you would use your fingers to move something. So it's like picking a bit of the grass and maneuvering the grass with its lips into its mouth. Even though it is feeding and looking in this direction, notice the ears, how constantly it will point the ears back. So if there's any danger in the back, it'll be able to hear it even though the eyes aren't looking backwards. And of course, having zebra and wildebeest, so as we mentioned, so because of the different ways that they do feed and use different heights within the grass, they also use one another, like in terms of having more eyes and more ears. They feel safer. This is often with the wind picking up like this. And I remember Mike making a comment early on that it could assist the predators as well whenever they hunt. And you can imagine with animals you would have seen on the drives, they are a little bit more skittish, especially when the wind blows like this. So any sudden movement, any branch that breaks would immediately grab their attention and they'll run off. And I think it's just because of the wind, they can't hear. Their senses are really influenced, and so they try as best as they can to be aware of what's going on around. It looks to me the mother and the youngster actually started to move off to the left a little bit there. So we'll just see if we can focus. How beautiful would it be with that golden light? I'm just going to lower my head out of the way so we can see that little one. But it's not going to be long and then they can move into quite a nice open patch for us. I think what we could possibly even do is try and see if we can move slightly forward and get another glimpse. So I think while we try and reposition the vehicle, let's send you back to Mike to hear if there's an update.
Right, so we found the buffalo. They're still in the thickets, but they are moving towards this open area that's up ahead of us. So I'm hoping if you can just see through the trees there, you might just see that there's a bit of an open area. I'm hoping that they'll go and catch the last rays of the sun as it settles down there. But certainly, as you were talking about the zebra before and how nervy they are and how nervous they're becoming because of the wind, we're finding a lot of the animals are doing the same. Even the birds that are perching on these exposed branches around us, they're not staying there for very long before they fly to the next branch because they're also struggling with the wind. It's not easy for any of the animals at the moment. In fact, the only animals that are benefiting from this wind are the predators, because they can hunt now, even during the daytime, using, normally they would need the cover of darkness, but they can actually even come out during the day now and still be able to catch stuff because they've got that extra bit of edge. But it's going to be a beautiful sunset. With this soft light in the air and this dust, I think it's going to be a beautiful golden sunset. And I'm just hoping that these buffaloes come out for us. We've got nothing that's come down to the waterhole, I think, because it's so cold and windy today. The animals are just staying put. They're saying, well, we'll just give up drinking for today and just rest rather in the thickets somewhere. Because remember, the animals can get some of the food, some of the water requirements from the food that they eat. So for a lot of these animals, it's not necessary that they come and drink every day. If they missed 1 or 2 drinking sessions, it probably wouldn't affect them too greatly, especially because the water's not going anywhere. The water's going to stay exactly where it is, and it's quite deep, so it's there for quite a while. But yeah, it's also nice just to sit and listen for a few minutes. Let's see if we can hear anything calling from around here. Now that the sun is starting to set, we might just get some of the sounds. The wind is actually dying just a little tad at the moment. It's not quite as strong as it was before. So that might be an opportunity for some of the birds to call. Windy days are terrible, Alarmoa. They are... It's my worst type of weather, honestly. I mean, rain we can deal with. If it's cold, we can put something warm on. When it's windy, it's very, very difficult for anything to be comfortable. And definitely you can see the buffaloes and other animals are staying in these thickets because they've really got no defense against it as well. So whilst we wait for these animals to come out of these thickets and get to this nice warm sun, let's go over to James, who's got a little bit of a migration.
Yes, a very good description of what's going on here. Let me just move forward a bit slightly because naturally they decided to go and sit behind a bush as you came towards us. There we go. Very nice herd of wildebeesten. And there are lots of animals coming up into the clearings today earlier than they would normally because of the wind. So the wildebeest are coming out of the woodland now. The zebras are out in the clearing here as well. There are a few big herds of impala and everything trying to be as safe as possible. Some quite nice dust bathing going on there. Anybody out here right now is having a dust bath, whether they like it or not. It's more of a dust shower, I suppose. Anushka, wildebeest and zebra tolerate each other for the same reason that they tolerate impala. I mean, they're all herbivores, so they don't mind each other. In places like East Africa, you find them together because the zebras eat slightly longer grass and the wildebeest come afterwards and eat the shorter stuff. That really isn't so much the case here because the herds are, well, not even a fraction of the size. They're much more split up. So you'll find lots of herbivores living together, largely because they don't affect each other and they don't actually have a particularly competitive food niche. There are some more. You don't want them, BK? There we are. Very pretty. Very good. Okay, BK. That'll do. That was a good wildebeest sighting. We shall continue.
WildEarth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the WildEarth family.
We just managed to reposition the vehicle so we can have another glimpse of the zebra and wildebeest together here. And you'll notice that the mother of that little one is actually trying to get in under that bush to get to the green grass, or not green grass, but probably more delicious grass. And that little one just got a fright. You see how it just ran around. Often little zebra at that age, they can be very playful, but I think you might have gotten a fright from some of the birds flying up. Of course, after a bit of a run, maybe a drink. Have you also notice with the mum and with this youngster, like in between those big broader black stripes, there's these little faint brownish stripes. So they refer to them as the shadow stripes. But the youngster almost looked like he's almost a bit of a different color, more of a brownish color. And I wonder, early on as it was lying down in the dirt, maybe it could be a bit of the dirt. Or maybe later on as it starts growing out, it will start losing that fluff, which is that dirty color, and then eventually have that more of a whitish shine. But I think he might have a little itch on his forehead. Look at how he's maneuvering his head under that branch to try and give it a scratch. So Gareth, with the zebra often, so the leader of the herd will probably be the most dominant male. So how that's all determined is that often the males will fight with one another, so they'll either bite each other or they kick one another. And of course the more dominant stallion is the one that doesn't run away, that actually stays, and that one will eventually take over a herd like this. But you'll see the stallions can fiercely defend their area or their little herd against other stallions that probably want to move in. But with this one here, I think the stallion might be off to the left. I just want to quickly have a look. There's one zebra that's a little bit further away from the rest of them, just off here to the left. I want to quickly have a look at. Now sometimes the stallions can be a little bit more bulkier than in comparison to the females. However, it is difficult unless you can look between the legs to see if it is a male or female. I mean, even at this position, it's really hard to see that. So we'll just have to wait and see. But often the stallion, what will happen is if there's any threat to the herd, he's often the one that would run at the back of the herd. So as soon as there's any danger, he will put himself between the danger and the rest of the herd. You can see the way that one's standing, very proud, just scanning the area. Now, off to his left is a more open area that he's scanning in, but I also think he might just be resting up a bit. Earlier on, we found him, he was rolling down in the mud, in the sand, probably trying to get rid of some parasites, and eventually stood up, and now just standing in that position. So with most of the viewers, I know a lot are saying that the zebras have quite a nasty bite. Now, I, out of personal experience, have heard about, so one of my friends, they were part of this game capture organization where they would move areas or relocate areas into different areas where they would have been naturally occurring, but of course with people moving in, they moved out, and so they started reintroducing zebras into this area. And he said one of the things they had to do was, of course, dart these zebras and then move them towards this particular reserve. And also there's an amazing person in Swaziland, a guy called Ted Riley, that had this amazing story of how he introduced the wildlife back into his reserve, one animal at a time. So it was an absolutely amazing stories. But one of these friends of mine, they were capturing zebra and moving them, and the one zebra, as they caught it and they started moving it, actually bit him on the leg, and it lashed on so hard that they could not get the zebra off, or couldn't free the mouth from his leg. So after quite a bit of struggle, they eventually managed to free it. Luckily he had long pants and that on, but it was apparently a very nasty bite. And you can imagine with zebras, sometimes you might even find them without tails, and that's because they can literally bite so hard that they can bite each other's tails off. So it just shows you the power that they have. And I'm sure a lot of our viewers can also associate with horses. I mean, always as kids growing up, they'll teach you not to hold, if you have a treat for a horse, not to hold your hand like a fist, because then often they could bite your fingers. And I mean, for those that have experienced it, it's quite a nasty bite. See that little one? Definitely not leaving mom's side. But it does feel like the wind is slowly starting to calm down. You can also see the animals now, with it slowly calming down, they do look a little bit more relaxed. Early on, when the wind was blowing and the leaves were making a noise and the branches were rubbing up against each other, you could see they were very unsettled, but getting a bit more and more restful now. So I'm going to enjoy the sighting for the next little while, see if there's any movement, or if they do decide to move somewhere else. But I think in the meantime, let's send you across to Mike down at Prrivate.
Well, that's terrible. I would not like to get bitten by a zebra, or kicked by one, actually. They're very powerful. Well, we've come to the other side of this clearing where the buffaloes were heading towards. We're just waiting around here. It's nice and open, wondering if maybe some animals will come out into this clearing for the sun. We actually had a hornbill perched so beautifully on these exposed branches in the sun, and then as you came over to us, it decided to fly off. It was a southern red-billed hornbill. But yes, the wind has died down, so there's no reason why animals might not come into this clearing to warm up. And what's interesting is that there's very red soil here, very different to some of the other soils that you find in other parts of Pride lands. And this place is called Red Earth. So you can see that red soil over there is full of iron. There's iron in the soil which gives it that reddish color. Oh, and there's a hornbill that just flew across the screen. I don't know if you saw it. Which is now perching almost exactly where it was perching before. Welcome back. Do you see it there, Gerrit, just in the middle there? So Red Earth is a place we often come when it's nice and sunny, because we know animals like to use these open areas. So this is a yellow-billed hornbill. So before there was a southern red-billed, now we've got a southern yellow-billed. And look at it, it looks cold, doesn't it? Just the way it's got its neck tucked in there and it's fluffed its feathers out. It's trying to warm up before this what I suspect is going to be a very, very cold night. It's actually a very pretty bird, though. That mottled colors on its wings and its snowy white breast, and that obviously big yellow beak or bill. Penelope, you're saying it's the perfect pose. It is the perfect pose for us, with that beautiful backdrop and the red earth and that beautiful dead log with all of its patterns and striations. And yeah, I mean, obviously for this bird, this southern yellow-billed hornbill, it's the perfect place for it to perch, because it's nice and open. It can see any predatory birds flying over, and it can also catch the sun without worrying about any branches being in the way, blocking its sun. See what it's doing there? It's busy preening itself. So with all this dust, it's probably got a lot of oily secretions all over its feathers, and the dust is helping to mop it up. And then what it does with its bill, it tries to smooth out all those feathers and clean itself. They'll often also go and bathe in the water, although it's a bit late now for it to be bathing. I don't know if you saw that little insect flew past and it caught the attention of that hornbill. Just for a moment, it wondered if maybe it could get one last minute snack. You see how it's looking around now, and it actually turns its head to look down towards the ground. It is just scanning for any movement. Remember, they eat mostly insects at this time of year. There's not much fruit to be had, so insects form the major part of its diet. So any grasshoppers or locusts or beetles that are scurrying around on that open sandy area, it will swoop down and try and grab them. Oh, just like it's done right there. Not sure where it went exactly. It's very difficult to... Just next to a termite mound on the left there. It's just on the ground. It looks like it's looking towards the termite mound, maybe trying to catch a little insect. But it's a beautiful spot. It's a really, really lovely spot. Just want to wait here a little longer to see if any animals do come out to catch these last golden rays on that red earth. So, amazing nature, you've asked what else hornbills eat. So it depends on the type of hornbill. So we get a number of different hornbills. I don't know if you can still see it there, just hopping next to that termite mound there. But we get a number of different types of hornbills. We've got the southern yellow-billed hornbill, like the one we just saw a moment ago. Well, there it is, which is right now eating an insect of some sort. There you go. They do eat fruits, of course, when there's fruit to be eaten. And we get large hornbills called southern ground hornbills, which are huge, standing over a meter tall. And they will also eat things like snakes and rodents and reptiles, so a lot of different things. But the southern yellow-billed hornbill, the smaller ones, are definitely eating mostly fruits and insects, depending on the time of year, and also depending on where they live. So amazing nature, I hope that answers your question. It's largely dependent on what is around and what hornbill it is. But certainly a variety. You could almost say it's an omnivore. from eating fruits and catching insects. I mean, I've seen a hornbill before. I've seen a picture of one. I didn't actually see it do it. I've seen a picture of a hornbill with a mouse or a rodent of some sort in its mouth. So certainly they can eat a lot of things. And I've seen a southern yellow-billed hornbill eating a tree agama. You know those blue-headed tree agamas? I'm not sure if you've seen one before, but I've seen one eating one of those as well. So a wide variety of things. You can just start to hear some of the birds doing their not the dawn chorus, their evening calls before they settle down. So we're going to keep listening out for anything that might call before the sun sets. I'm going to send you over to James, who's on the move.
We are doing our best to go as fast as we can towards the eastern boundary once again, because there are reports of those 2 wild dogs we had a little while ago coming this way. Torchwood. There's great excitement on the radio, so whether or not we'll get to see them on, I don't know, but I just want to make sure that we're in a position such that should they decide to cross the boundary, we are in a prime position. Hold on, BK. Unfortunately, one must be very careful driving quickly on this particular road, as one is likely to hit a bump or a log and either send the cameraman off the car or bite one's own tongue off, neither of which I want to effect. Meow. Along with this very strong wind has come the pleasant smell of felt fire, what we call a felt fire, what most people would call a bush fire, or in America a brush fire. And I think it's just from people burning fire breaks. Let's turn this up a little bit. I think they've lost them. That's not entirely a bad thing, because it does mean if they pitch up here, then we're in. So we're not far from the eastern boundary now. It's only about 100 meters that away, but we have to go around the block to get there. Literally around the block. All the while keeping an eye out for anything else that might want to get in our way, like a buffalo, or a lion, or an elephant, or Thandi and her baby. Unfortunately, this is my last drive for the next little while, and so, well, my desperation to see Thandi is probably just going to stay like it was. Oh, that's beautiful. We're going to go over to Lauren after we've had a very brief look at this gorgeous sky, which I've parked BK behind a tree. What a total moron I am. Still, it's pretty. We'll carry on. You go over to Lauren.
In the game, which means we're back on quarantine, which is really, really not a bad place to start. There are so many animals around here, all huddled together waiting for the night. We've got the wildebeest, we've got the impala and the zebra, and it's just so lovely to have zebra around. Especially that little foal. Oh, I wonder if that's Mama. It must be cold. Been suffering from these strong winds all day long. Some grooming going on there, I think. So, Nick, I don't think so. So it's very rare to see sort of interspecies interactions like that. Oh, isn't that adorable? I can imagine that would feel quite good. So although the herbivores, each species that you see here on quarantine, they're very aware of one another and comfortable with one another because they're not really all competing for the same resource. I mean, if they are all grazing the grass, then it's not really competition. There's lots of grass and safety in numbers. Impala's alarm call, sometimes they run if it's a wild dog, kudus, wildebeest vocalize. So they can all sort of feel a little bit safer in one another's presence, but there won't be interspecies interactions. Hey, look at that. Isn't that marvelous? I've never seen a zebra do this. This must be the mother. Must just be a really good back scratch. I love a good back scratch. I'm slightly jealous right now. Now it's so fluffy. This is such a youngster. Zebra foals are born remarkably precocial. And what that means is the opposite of lions and leopards and hyenas, who are born mostly altricial. Hyenas are slightly different. And they're born, well, just ready to run. They can stand within 10 minutes. So 10 minutes after birth they can stand. And they're said to be able to run within an hour. Can you imagine 1 hour of being born and you can run and keep up with the rest of the herd? Now, zebras have a slightly longer gestation period than humans, 1 year, 12 months. And that allows or ensures that the foal is born remarkably well developed. It has to be able to escape danger immediately. And it's not only the ability to run or the ability to sort of use those muscles, it's also coordination. If you think of a baby trying to coordinate itself when it's just born, it's almost impossible in human terms. So it's so remarkable that a zebra foal can do that automatically. Run. This must be Mama. This is very, very sweet. What a lovely sighting. I'm glad we stopped. Okay, I really am heading to the hyena den now to see if anything's changed since earlier. But as we do that, we're going to send you guys across to Mike with a giraffe.
Yes, well, our giraffe are a little bit playful. Now that the wind has died down, these tall animals that would otherwise be very concerned with the wind seem to be enjoying the much calmer sunset that we're having. So they're moving up on this crest, right on the top of a little hillside, and feeding on the sparse vegetation. Now you can see they're very, very well camouflaged. So they were obviously hanging out somewhere amongst these thickets, and they have now moved into a slightly more open area, but not super open. They're probably anticipating the wind coming back. And here you can see they've got their heads right down. This is a female, you can see, because of that paintbrush-like tops of its ossicones or horns. Oh, and beautiful eyelashes as well. Hey there. And yeah, so this is a female, and it's quite interesting. The females often feed low down. You don't normally see males doing this. male giraffe will usually feed as high up as they can because they're much, much taller than females, sometimes 1.5 meters taller. So if this female is fully grown, she's probably going to stand somewhere around 4 meters. And I've seen male giraffes more than 1 meter taller, so sometimes up to 5.5 meters tall, which is crazy when you think about it. That's like 3 average-sized people standing on top of their shoulders. 4 people if you're a very short person, which would be very interesting. And you can just see they're feeding on whatever greenery they can find. And there's a little bird just there by the mouth of that giraffe. I think you saw one of those earlier. I'm sure you know what it is. It's got a forked tail. It's dark in color and it's often following the mammals around. Anyone know what that is? I'm sure one of you knows what that is. I'll leave it for you guys to let me know. But they're often following around. So there's a lot of other birds around as well. So this is not the only bird that's following these giraffes. There were a few oxpeckers also flitting around, hoping to catch or eat the ticks and parasites that are on the skin of these giraffes. I don't see any on this particular giraffe, but they were really feeding on the softer areas around the... Oh, Bob, you got it right. Bob said it's a drongo. It is a drongo, Bob. It's a forked-tailed drongo. Nice. So fork-tailed drongos are very, very commonly found near other animals. They are very intelligent, and they often, chase small animals away from food, like mongoose. When mongoose are busy feeding, they will make alarm calls, and the mongoose will run off, and the drongos will come and steal whatever it is they've dug up. And when there's larger mammals that wouldn't be scared by a drongo, they simply wait. Simply wait for the large animals to disturb something out of the bushes, and then they go and snap it up. So the other day when I was walking through the bush, there was a drongo following me, because, human beings are quite clumsy when we walk through the bush. We knock over grasses and brush against trees and bushes, and I was disturbing all manner of little critters, and the drongo was loving following me. And often the cars as well. Sometimes you'll even find, especially in the summer, when there's lots of insects and migrant birds like the bee-eaters, you'll often find them following the cars as we drive on these dusty dirt roads. So, striped horse, you've asked if there are any leaves that giraffes won't eat. Now, I don't know if there are any leaves that they won't eat flat out, but there are some leaves that they seem to feed less on. Now, I'll tell you, I haven't seen many giraffes feeding on trees, well, sometimes, but not often, on trees that have a lot of latex. So we do see them sometimes feeding on tambuti, but it seems to be a seasonal thing. They seem to only do it when they really have to, and also sometimes maybe as almost a medicinal thing. What it's feeding on right now, striped horse, looks like the leaves of a knob thorn, which is, quite often thought to be the giraffe's favorite food, because although the leaves are small, they're very nutritious. All these ex-acacias, they used to be known as acacias, all these trees are very, very nutritious leaves, and they don't have much defense against the giraffe and all their adaptations. But I haven't seen giraffes feeding much on things like marula trees, and they don't often feed on things like magic guarri, these very, very tough green plants. There's a lot of green magic guarris around at the moment, but their leaves are very waxy and dry and papery, so they wouldn't like to feed on those very much. But here they feed a lot on the knob thorns, and we've seen them eating tambutis recently, but they don't seem to favor them, not when they have other things to feed on. It's quite interesting. I was reading an article the other day about giraffes being a very big pollinator of knob thorns. So this tree that it's feeding off right now will be one of the first trees that flowers in the springtime, and the giraffes love them. They love the flowers, they love the trees. They'll go and put their whole faces in amongst these fresh green leaves, and in doing so they'll get lots of the pollen all over their muzzle and on their face, and as they move from tree to tree they transfer that pollen, and they actually pollinate and help the tree to reproduce, producing the fruits and seeds to make the next generation. It's very interesting. Mostly we don't think of mammals being pollinators of plants. Usually it's insects and birds, but mostly insects and wind, but not usually mammals. So it's very interesting. This is a very large knob thorn, and that's a very large, tall male giraffe. So this male giraffe is probably peaking around 5 meters. I'm sure if a female comes next to him, we'll get to see the difference. So whilst we watch this giraffe feeding on this knob thorn, we'll send it to James, who's got a lovely sunset.
Very spectacular. Nice last low-felt sunset for a little while. Beautiful. And I'm sure all you heard there was the wind. Unfortunately, not much else going on. Now they've lost those wild dogs. Nobody knows where they are, so they could pitch up here at any stage. So we'll just keep trawling about this part of the world. Magnificent sunset. It really was lovely. Yes, Megan, I agree. It was very stunning indeed. So we're parallel with our eastern boundary. Dogs apparently were heading kind of this way, but you know how quickly they can change direction. They really could be anywhere. Oh yes, me too, Jenna. I hope I find something cool as well on my last drive for a little while. Lauren has managed to find a coolish kind of a thing. I think it's a pretty cool thing.
It's very cool. The token scrub hair. I haven't put a scrub hair on camera in some time actually. It's frozen in place. I promise it's real. It's taken the sort of freeze tactic, hoping that we can't see it, but in fact we can. Now I do have good news for you all. We are at the hyena den. And the bad news is there's no hyenas, but the good news is we have names. The poll results are in. So for the two little cubbies, the winners are Shimbulu, which means to have heart. And the second one is Ngwazi, which means adventurous. So I'm thinking the adventurous one, Ngwazi, should be the more dominant one, or the one that we think is more dominant. It's actually tricky with this pair. The lighter one and the larger one should be Ngwazi because it's very adventurous and very brave and naughty. And the second one should be Shimbulu, have heart. They're both loving, of course, but the slightly darker one with the darker face, unfortunately I can't show you them right now, is a little bit quieter, slightly more gentle and more submissive. So thank you everyone who voted. We really appreciate your efforts, and I'm really happy that two little boys have names. I'm not so happy that they're not at the den, but I'm sure they'll be around tomorrow. And it was beautiful names that were selected by the rangers and trackers of Juma. And why that's important is because, how can I say this? Not everybody recognizes hyenas as importing animals. So there's a real negative connotation against hyenas, and many people from lodges and all around do not value them the way that we do. So I think it's really important to get everyone on board for the naming process, and what amazing names they chose. So thank you everyone. Now I hope they've not moved. That's always what I think when I see the den empty. Not one single adult today and not one single cub. So they're either taking an off day or they have moved once again. So I'm going to search for any nocturnal predators now that may be hunting with the wind, but Nicky already has his lions.
This afternoon we were very fortunate enough. We tracked these lions for quite a while, and we were rewarded with some impala alarm calling. And as we got there, we found this lioness in the grass. So it is part of the Birmingham Pride. There's actually another one off to the right from where we are. I'm just going to lower my head so it's out of the way. But you'll see she's moving almost in, or she's just gone and laid down in that open patch right in front of us here. Now, it does look like it's two of the adult females. So you'll see we're currently in infrared mode because of the light is slowly starting to fade away. But I wonder if the rest of the pride isn't still down towards the tree line. And these two females would have left them behind to come and hunt and eventually go back and meet up with the rest of the pride. And I can actually see one of the youngsters, but quite far off, looking in this direction. So definitely these two were hunting and leaving the youngsters. So it is too far to show it on the screen. But what we could possibly do is, let me just try and reposition a little bit. It will take me 2 seconds, and then we can possibly see this female as well as the ones that are coming out of the tree line. So if I move, so I'm just gonna Anushka, with lions, so one of the ways they could potentially get rid of ticks is, so they often, if there's any tick, you'll see them licking the ticks off, or even biting them. So if they groom each other, you'll see the one will actually pull it off. I don't know if you've noticed it, but with dogs, they often do that. As soon as a dog has a tick on the other one, they actually smell it and then bite the tick off, or actually grab it and then pull it off. Now, from where this one is just right, so we're going to try and see if we can show you this other one. So if we go a little bit right of it and at the back, you might be able to see the other lions. So let's just go slightly right. Go a little bit right from that. Slightly more, continue. A little bit more. So it is getting darker, so we're just going to go a little bit more to the right than that. And basically we should get it soon. Slightly more. I just want to make sure. Actually, there we go. There's the other ones. And it might be the whole pride that's on their way. So let's see how they're going to interact once they get closer to the rest of the pride here. But look at the way that they're moving and looking around. It's just such a majestic animal, full of, it almost looks like an animal with a lot of pride whenever it moves. I know a while ago we were saying, why is a lion or lions called the pride of lions? And it's just basically because of that. You can see they have very elegant, proud stance as they move. And then even look at the back of the screen, you might even notice there's more lions on their way. So let's see what will happen once these two females join up with this other one, because often with these females, if they do hunt together, they have to establish that very strong bond. So I can't imagine as soon as they get to this other female, they might even rub their faces against one another. But I think the youngsters probably realize that the whole hunt is over. There's no more excitement, and so that's why the rest of the pride. Pat, I do agree with you. I think, imagine if we sit here and that lioness with the young cubs come out. Like we've seen her a few days ago. Unfortunately, we couldn't get her on film because of the fact that she moved into quite a dense area. But when we last saw her, the youngsters were looking really good. And the mother as well. So let's see how they're going to interact with her. But then we're going to move back to the right because there's even more lions on their way. But let's first see how they're going to interact. Remember, we said they're going to probably rub their faces against one another, just establishing that bond with each other. Now if we move slightly off or just zoom out a little bit from here, notice all the other lions that are on their way to join up. Even that young Birmingham male is on his way. Of course, this one excitement couldn't believe maybe like this one thought there could have been something there. He's probably wondering, okay, Mom, where's the meal? Now the thing is with lions, even though they are these good hunters and they do communicate, and even though they do have this very strong bond with one another, the thing is often with lions is they're not the most successful when it comes to hunting. So you can imagine if they had to try 100 times, probably 40% or 40 times they will be successful. So they have a 40% rate, but sometimes if there's a lot of youngsters around, it might even drop that a little bit lower, because of the fact that the youngsters don't have any patience. They just get so excited and they might just spoil the hunt. But have a look. So there's even more on their way. But it is a very, very gentle greeting, the way that they're all just as they started to lie down and just quickly like re-establish that bond.
We had some kudu there. Unfortunately, they have now absconded naturally. Yeah, don't know really where to go anymore. I don't know that the dogs are going to come this way anymore, sadly. So I suppose we'll just make our way gently back towards the west and see what's there. There's a rather strange noise here if you listen carefully. A plaintive whistling. And I'm not sure what it is. The closest I can get is a grey-headed bushrike, but it's the wrong kind of habitat. It's an interesting thought. Emma says maybe it's the wind making its way through some sort of hole. It's possible, Emma. Maybe there's some hole in a tree that's been drilled by a woodpecker at exactly the right angle. Difficult to hear anything in this foul wind. Anyhow, let's continue along. We'll do one more little trawl of the east and then head back towards home. It's almost time to put the lights on. Yes, there it is. It's like pushing the buttons. Makes me feel like I'm flying the Starship Enterprise, which of course I'm not. Yes, indeed, Butterfly, we have got some very mean weather going here. Not as mean as it was in the Kalahari earlier. I mean, it was snowing there this morning. Let's go back to the Birmingham Pride now, while we give one last trawl to the east.
It looks like the whole Pride is slowly starting to emerge from the trees at the back. Unfortunately, the only ones we don't see is that lioness with the very small youngsters. But I think she might not be with the Pride at the moment. She might even eventually catch up with them. But imagine for her, with those youngsters here, if there's so many mouths to feed, then the chances are it's almost like more beneficial for her and the youngsters to be by themselves. Because at least if they do catch something, it's theirs, and they don't have to share it. Where here, let's just quickly count. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 lions that I can see right in our view at the moment. There's one just lying behind us that we might not be able to see, but Even notice the little ones, especially the two whitish ones, they're still covered with blood. And I wonder if they probably made another kill later on during the morning. Because you can see how they're just grooming one another now, just to try and clean that blood off one another's face. But have a look at this. This is very interesting behavior. Now, just off to the left of where we're looking now is that young male. And look at how it might be another male. I'm just trying to look with the binoculars because we are slowly starting to lose a bit of light. It is another young male, but look at those are two males. So this male basically lied down right next to that male and started licking his face and cleaning him up. But how beautiful is his face? I mean, that male off to the right is going to be a big male. Ian, I'm not too sure on the exact amount that it would be in terms of the saliva, but I do think that it would be quite a bit though. Because you can imagine if they have to clean themselves, they constantly would clean their legs, their faces, one another's faces. So I'm sure it has to be a decent amount. But the exact amount of it, I'm not too sure. Have a look at this female, how she's actually curled up her paw. And often what they need to do is, because the claws are retractable, they often clean it, so they'll bite it and actually pull to try and get rid of if there's any bits or pieces stuck in that claw. Just imagine that tongue as well must be almost like sandpaper. So as they are licking that, it must clean it quite well, especially also if they lick one another, or they lick their legs, or even their paws. Because I have heard when lions are especially close to a carcass and they do lick the bone, it almost sounds like sandpaper rubbing over that bone, because they're able, with those little barbs in the tongue, in order to just grab little bits of pieces of meat off when they do lick. But the way that they are sitting down now, so all the more experienced females are basically sitting with their heads up and smelling the air constantly and looking around to see if there's any potential meal. I think they tried for impala, but unfortunately they missed. And because of that, they know the opportunity is gone for the next little while. And because of that, they'll probably just wait for everything just to quiet down again, for the animals to start relaxing, and then they'll start moving. So, Sandra, very good question with some of the lions, but I'll get to that one right now. I just want to show off to the right here. There's another lioness actually on her way to the rest of the pride. So see how they look like they are picking up their heads at the moment. So just off to our right here, you'll notice another lioness on her way to come join up with the pride. Now, so with the question earlier on with the lions, so there are some lions here that are a little bit different in color to the others. So I want to show, so this one that's moving, I just want to have a look if this is possibly, this is the young female, the one that has the small cubs, because I can just look between her legs, her teeth are quite swollen. So I wonder where she might have hidden her cubs away, but she's now joined up with the rest of the pride. And how I knew that is, if we move closer towards her belly, you'll notice that there's these black marks on her teeth. So that's where the youngsters have probably been suckling. Now, just to show you, so it is difficult to see, especially because we are in infrared, but look at the lion just off to the right there. Have you noticed how much lighter in color he is in comparison to the others? So this one is one of the white lions that we do find in the area. There's two that's within this pride, known as the Birmingham pride. Now, they're not albinos, so look at this one, how much lighter in color in comparison to the others. I think, I don't know if we'll be able to go off infrared just to have a look at them. because I think then you'll be able to see the color a bit different, but we'll try. So right here, if we do that and we do zoom in a little bit from here, you can possibly see the colors. So it's basically this. So this line is not an albino, but it has a form or condition called leucism, or leucistic form, and what that basically means is it's also lacking pigmentation, but not to the extreme of albinism. So there's still some variance of it that's not all the way down to albinism, like the color of the eyes, the color behind the ears, the color of the mouth, the nose, the insides of the nose, the pads, but very close to albinism though. But you can notice this one's face really like red in color, and it might be because earlier on today they caught some impala, or caught a impala, and I'm sure it didn't last this whole pride too long. I'm sure everyone just managed to get one bite out of it, for those who like it two bite. But I think for now, let's head back to infrared, because we are losing a bit more light. 1, 2, there we go. But notice, so with an albino line, if it was white like this, you won't see those black spots behind the ears, like we can see there. Almost like the rest. Almost looks like as soon as this one lioness starts moving, I'm sure the whole pride will follow. Normally the older, more experienced lionesses, as soon as they start moving, that's when the rest will follow. Now that young female that went and lied down right in the middle there now with the... Remember we said she looks like the mother of those youngsters? Now if we can go now, you'll actually see her belly is a bit more exposed. You'll notice those black markings right at... like down. You can see it looks like a bit of skin that runs down, and then if you look at her teeth, it's quite swollen. So she has those 2 young cubs. Now for those who don't know from our viewers, so she is the sister of that young male that's lying off just to the left that we had the screen on a bit earlier. So this one right here, see that young male that's just gotten up at the back? So that is her brother. You can see his leg is still quite sore from that injury that he had obtained a few months ago, but he is putting a lot more pressure on it. And at least for him, if he sticks with this pride, he would be guaranteed at least of a meal, hopefully in the next few days, or even, you don't know, maybe even this evening. The wind is blowing so hard, a lot of the prey animals are a lot more vulnerable now because they can't really hear or smell because of the strong wind. So it gives these lions a bit of an opportunity.
This will be our final segment before we go into infrared. In fact, we'll probably go into infrared as soon as, well, BK decides, because we're at the last ends of the coloured light. But it just is quite nice, I don't know, eveningish sort of colours we have there. Kudu look very richly coloured. Enrique, you go whenever you're ready. You ready? 3, 2, 1. Now we're in infrared. These are kudus, in case you were wondering. Oof, who would be a wild animal out here in weather like this? Absolutely terrifying. At least they know that they're relatively safe from some of the predators. You know, leopards, unlikely to whack one of them. But hyenas, lions, terrifying. I have not seen a lot of kudu killed, I must say, or being eaten. Some, but not that many. Yes, Linda, this infrared light has been a revelation, I think. Something of a revelation and a revolution. And although the picture is, or let's face it, it's not particularly pretty, that colour. It's magnificent because we don't need to blind animals with a spotlight. It's something I dislike doing, is shining a spotlight on animals, because I just feel bad about it. I feel like we're out here enough during the day, and animals are nocturnal for a reason. It's because they don't want to move around in the light. And so it's really best if we can view them in the dark without lighting them up. Sometimes it's unavoidable because we might be in a block and we need to get out trying to find them. But as far as possible, we should try, I think. Right, there's kudu, the sum total of our last trawl at the eastern boundary. We are going to start making our way back towards camp. Lauren is also in infrared, and I believe she's found something.
I am in black and white, and we found some elephants. Now, I'm just being very cautious here because 1, it's getting dark, and 2, it's windy. There's just one here, Davy, right behind the mound. So I just want to be really, really careful and not startle any of these animals. Have I just imagined that one behind the mound? No, I haven't. There we go. I don't have any of my car lights on. That reflection that you're seeing in that elephant's eye is from the glare of the infrared. If you were to shine lights on elephants, that would be a completely different story. They would not like it. It's morally wrong, but elephants would react to that. They don't really have good eyesight anyway. They're said to be quite short-sighted, and they can only really see objects 50 meters in front of them. And of course, if the object is a mouse, then they probably cannot see that mouse because it's too small. You've got to think of the position of their head. Their eyes are roughly the same size as humans. So if you think of our eyeballs and a large skull like that, that immediately highlights that vision is not their key sense. They're said to also have quite a severe blind spot. So they rely on hearing. You can tell by their ginormous ears. Smell. You can tell by those extremely long olfactory turbinals. And they also have an organ of Jacobson, where they can taste the chemicals in the air. They can taste the smell. I really hope the wind eases up a little bit for tomorrow. It does make things rather tricky. Oh, there's a little one, Davy. I think it's very tricky for us to see now. Yes. Oh. But you know, with elephants, the best thing is to make yourself known. So don't scare them, but make your presence known rather than trying to be too quiet where they could end up getting a fright. Just make your presence known and keep talking, keeping my voice at the same steady pace, same tone. Trying to be too quiet could actually backfire on you. Okay, I think we're going to try and just go back a little bit to give you a better view. The infrared light's a fantastic tool, but it doesn't have as much reach. Oh, actually, there's more on the road in front of us. The herd's crossing. Can you hear them? Miss KJ, I've actually never heard that before. I've heard that elephants obviously get slightly well, they overreact, should we say, to mice. I've never heard that about bees, but I would imagine it's probably true. I think bees can irritate a lot of people. They are slightly scared of bees. So I can imagine a small buzzing insect would irritate elephants. So I can imagine that's true, but I have actually never heard of that. I'm just trying to think how to position. Let's go back and see if we can get better views. Okay, I'm going to try and get a better view of these elephants for you, and while I do that, let's go back across to Nicky and his lions.
We're just trying to follow these lines, so they have decided to move along the road. We don't know how long they're going to move for, and I think it might be, it's literally straight into the wind, and there's quite a big water hole not too far away from here, and I think eventually from here on, they'll start making their way down to the water. So I'm just going to move slightly forward, and I'll switch off the vehicle just to see this pride. They're basically walking into the sunset. Let's have a look at that. You might just, if we listen to the ambient sound, you might just hear the wind through the branches of the trees. But it's basically from them towards us, and they're going straight into that. So you never know with lions moving if there's going to be possibly an opportunity as they go along. So we are going to give them a bit of distance. So if there is anything, we don't want to disturb it. We also don't have any lights on it at the moment. So what you're seeing now is basically, we can't see that properly. I'm basically just trying to keep my wheels on the road, but keeping a bit of a distance. We don't want to put any spotlights on them at the moment, because especially if there is something that they might spot, so it doesn't give their position away. But with them walking on the road, I mean, if there's any animal that is around and they see them on the road, there's no cover for them. So they'll probably be able to spot them. We're just trying to keep up with them and see where do they eventually decide to veer off, or if they're going to stay on the road. Now, the reason why they have decided to stay on the road, Peaches, they are very majestic. And I mean, now it looks like they might have even stopped at this termite mound. So it'd be interesting to see if there's maybe something at the termite mound that they could have smelt. But the reason why they are sticking on the road is, so imagine if there's a well-worn elephant trail, they're most likely going to use that, similar to why they do this. And the reason why they do that is because instead of going and bashing through the thick vegetation, or maybe like walking over quite a few rocks or thorns, they decide to take the path of least resistance, and in that case it's a nice open stretch of dirt where they can walk on. So let's see if we can catch up. There was a few that showed a bit of interest at this termite mound, but all of them has decided to move on. So let's just see if we can get another closer glimpse. So while we're going to follow the lines for a little bit longer, we're going to send you to Mike, who's also looking for something nocturnal, and hopefully we'll wish him the best of luck. He can find something for us.
So as you can see, we are looking for some nocturnal creatures, and we are actually using a spotlight to look for the eyes shining. As I shine the light left and right, I'm looking for any sparkling reflections. So a lot of the nocturnal animals have a special membrane on their eyes that helps them to see better at night by reflecting the ambient light, the starlight and the moonlight, into their eyes in order to see better, and that helps us as well. We've got to be careful with the spotlight though, it is very strong, so we're talking about the infrared light, so it's obviously much more sensitive to the eyes. So when we find animals, we have to be very, very careful not to shine directly on them. But yes, we're driving along this rocky ridge over here, because this is where we know a lot of predatory animals might have rested up during the day and use this as a place to come down, to hunt through these clearings where we've been seeing these impalas. Just thought I saw an eye back there. Oh, it's very deep into the bush. It's very small as well, in a tree. I think it's probably a nightjar or a bush baby, one of these small nocturnal animals. A nightjar is a bird. It's very far away though. I don't think you'll be able to see it. But yeah, it's such a nice evening with this wind that's still blowing. There's a very exciting potential for nocturnal animals like, the predators to be out and about. I don't know about animals like porcupines and aardvarks and other nocturnal ones that aren't predators. They'd probably be quite nervous about coming out tonight. So they'll just be hiding away. But it's always nice to drive around just sweeping the light back and forth. It's quite therapeutic, actually. It's almost like a type of meditation. You just get into a rhythm and you follow the lights. Rachel, you're wondering if the wind affects how animals smell, their sense of smell. Oh, you're right there, Gerrit. A few branches overhanging the road. Rachel, yes, it certainly does. Remember, the smells are transferred best in a light wind. A small drifting breeze will carry scent a long way, especially for animals that are very sensitive to it. Like, any of the predatory animals, or even elephants, let's say, with a very big long nose. But in this very strong wind, it actually destroys the scent very quickly. So the predators won't be using their sense of smell to hunt. They'll be using their eyesight and maybe their hearing a little bit. But the prey won't be able to smell the predators coming unless they're very close. Those scents will be obliterated by this swirling, gusting wind. And the predators will be able to walk basically without worrying. Because even their footsteps, even on small branches, cracking leaves, it's not going to worry any of the herbivores. They won't hear it at all. So yeah, no, definitely, Rachel, it definitely affects their sense of smell. I mean, I can't smell anything right now apart from dust. So that's probably what the antelope and other animals are also smelling. Just dust everywhere. So you can actually see the dust probably in the camera there. You see how it's picking up all the dust particles, the spotlight. So very much so. So yes, we're just going to keep slowly driving through these rocky areas, looking for any nocturnal animals. We'll send you back to Nikki.
So they decided to veer off the road, and there's a little or quite a big-ish termite mound here, and this young male decided to come and lie down right on top of it. The others are moving off, but this one he might just be keeping an eye on everyone. I don't know if there is a chance they might have smelled something, and because of that they are slowly moving through this dense area to see if there's any possible opportunity for a meal tonight. But see how he's carefully scanning. He's going to definitely make sure that he doesn't stay behind, because then he might potentially miss out on a meal by the time he gets there. So he just wants to try and stay as close to the pride as he possibly can. See, I think as soon as that one starts moving, this young male is going to get up and he's going to follow them. Tammy, I do agree with you. Like, I think a lot of our viewers and a lot of the rangers and trackers, this lion has really gotten quite a big soft spot in our hearts, especially because of the fact that he's been so persistent and he's been able to push through all of this, especially that injury that he had, and he's been able to survive. And that's, I mean, being a lion at that age is probably one of the most difficult periods that he'll be in. Of course, that and later on in his life. But I think as once he pushes through this and he's able to survive, like, he's going to be a majestic male lion. But you can still see, I mean, look at his left leg in comparison to the right one. If you look at the hips as well as the thighs, you can see that the left side is a little bit smaller. And I think the reason being is because he's not been putting a lot of pressure there. So a lot of the muscles have collapsed. But if you look at him now in comparison to maybe 2.5 months ago, that leg almost looked like there was no muscle around. So he's slowly starting to develop it again. So pretty soon, hopefully in the next 2-3 months, that leg will probably look a little bit more like the one on the right. Alamua, he definitely has a good attitude. Just look at his stance. Look at even his little bit of mane that he has, how the wind's just blowing through it. There he goes. He's on his way. He's like, okay, don't want to be left behind here when there's possible dinner waiting.
Hello, we've got some zebras over here, BK. There they are. Oh, they've run away now already. No, there they are. They are moving away. We've got bottoms. Let's go a little bit forward. Gosh, I do not envy any of these creatures out here. Some wildebeest, some impalas. Now we can get a nice one of the zebras. There we go. So the wind is swinging slowly now from a northwester. It's now coming sort of straight from the west. And I imagine by tomorrow morning, when the unfortunates going on game drive will head out of camp, it'll be driving at them from the southeast, I think. And I suspect it'll be cloudy and probably fairly cold. And whatever happens, the wildebeest, impala and zebra of these clearings will be very, very pleased when the sun finally comes up again tomorrow morning. It's somewhere around 06:45, I think. Well, maybe 7 o'clock actually. But it'll be light before then. I'd be surprised if one of these trees wasn't blown over. Yes, crazy, they do pop a little in black and white, these zebras. They're just sort of drifting outside of the range of the infrared. Gosh, wind ain't getting any softer. Alright everybody, that's it from me for this last session. I'll be back again, I think, in about 4 weeks' time. It's been a huge pleasure, as always. Greatly disappointed not to have seen Tandi's young cub, who the Torchwood people have called Wolfie, not his official name. I will see you all in about 4 weeks' time. Thank you for your questions and comments and all your support. Bye-bye.